Well, thank you all for coming. I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule. My name is Jim Goldfinger. I am the Chief Customer Officer of Customer Times, also the executive sponsor for our partnership with Xactly. Very excited to share, not only our sort of the value proposition that Xactly brings, but how it's really borne itself out with the folks, our good friends at Code Climate that Andrew will address. So just a tiny bit about us, Customer Times. We've been a partner with Xactly for the last 6 years. We've been in the Salesforce ecosystem for, as you could see, 15 years. Me personally, I've been a practitioner in this area that we're going to talk about today for nearly 40 years. So it's really, I'm a one-trick pony. It's all I know, and very excited about the value that this collective solution brings to the market to unleash the intrinsic value, if you will, of the investments in these areas by Xactly, and certainly the way that through Andrew's leadership, we'll see and hear about at Code Climate. So Taylor, why don't I turn it over to you, and maybe you can walk us through, your sort of point of view in this area.
Yeah, appreciate it, Jim, and thanks for having us on today. So I'm Taylor Wilding. I'm the Regional Vice President of Sales here at Xactly. What we're going to talk about today is not just the leveraging Incent, which is the flagship solution of Xactly. It's been around for 17 plus years, but also how do you leverage Salesforce and Incent together to be the most sticky RevOps engine possible. And so what we're talking about today is what we call Xactly CRM Accelerator, which kind of speaks to what it is exactly, and really the ability to bring data in and out of Salesforce in the most streamlined fashion, allowing you to leverage the investments you've already made in your CRM, being Salesforce, and really improve your agility and make those daily changes, through flow controls and other things of that nature. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And then, of course, the application as to which Code Climate has put this out into their Salesforce today. So, what we're looking at here is, of course, what's familiar to most people, Salesforce customers, is what it looks like. And so the ability to, of course, have that single sign-on directly within your Salesforce ecosystem is huge for your sellers, and really meet them where they are on a daily basis in order to, not have them go to all these disparate systems. But on the RevOps side of things is how do you have that familiar language and the understanding as to where things are and how to connect the dots between your compensable data, if you will, being the transactional data, and then bring that into a commissions engine and calculation, but at the same time having the flexibility and agility to do so within that natural environment, which is Salesforce for most. So that's what we're looking at here, is what that looks like and the ability to do so in part, but really it's looking at it from the ease of use, and the familiarity is really what should be taken away from here, and which of course is looking at the time to value that organizations like Code Climate have experienced by leveraging not only Xactly Incent, but that connector and the ability to do things within the CRM Accelerator piece as well.
Before we go on, I'll just make a comment to that, Taylor. Again, as a practitioner of CRM, I've observed a few things over the years, right? And one is to get more adoption, to get stickiness around investments like Salesforce, you have to sort of get past the curve of you feeling like you're working for the system and the system actually working for you, providing you insights. And I certainly, believe that this is one of those areas where the system is working for the user, providing those insights, giving sort of actionable insights that make Salesforce more valuable and powerful.
Absolutely. And I think too, on the front, as we're moving on to this piece here, is the natural abilities that Salesforce admins and the like have to build out reports. I mean, these are out of the box dashboards that come with our CRM Accelerator offering, but the ability to leverage overall reporting engines of Salesforce, essentially gives you revenue nirvana. I mean, there's not really anything you can't do in bringing that information to light. And I think it comes back to not only the ease of use from the RevOps team, serving the end customers being the sellers, but those sellers then have the ability to have their behavior driven by their comp plans. And if the comp plan is formulated properly, then it's driving that right behavior. And so the ability within the application as well to see the potential that you would make on an opportunity before it ever closes, based on maybe discounting that you've done, or if you're crossing a tier within your comp plan or whatever that might be, to surface that information and make those insights actionable to the reps. If the comp plan is designed properly, not only does it drive, the rep to execute upon that and put the most money in their pocket, but once again, if designed properly, it's also laddering up to the overall objectives of an organization.
Again, I'm nodding because I'm thinking about alignment, right? Alignment from the top down to the bottom, to the folks that are in the trenches every day. And that's another area that I saw, that I've been on projects where I see customers going in a different direction and looking to set up Salesforce in a way that doesn't align with the corporate goals. And incentive, obviously, for anyone in the selling space, that's the best way to stay on track with corporate goals, is to align your incentives accordingly and to make that as transparent as possible.
Yeah, and we just did a Forrester, review alongside with Salesforce in order to understand the total economic impact of our solution. And if you go on the back slide that we just had there, it was talking about dispute management and things like that. And really, there's a couple of big buckets that you can gain, and one of those is, of course, sellers' time, right? And time is of the essence, especially as a lot of organizations today are trying to do just as much, if not more, revenue with less people. So how do you give the sellers that time back in order to be efficient? And at the same time, from a RevOps perspective and overall total cost of ownership, how do you do it with a lower price point or lower cost, but with greater control? That's really what the CRM Accelerate has allowed our customers to do.
Yeah, and I think about, again, teeing up Andrew in a few minutes, but it's really where RevOps meets sales ops. And I know that was sort of the headline for today, but that's the other thing that I see, is that commission shouldn't be, handled on the side inside finance. It really should be holistic between sales and finance, again, for alignment, for transparency, and to eliminate, any confusion, so that everybody's, going down the same path together.
Right. And I mean, as we're looking at here, right, getting rid of the spreadsheets, we all know, everyone knows that spreadsheets have their time and their place, but there gets to be a point where spreadsheets are not the time and the place for commissions. And we can, of course, have a conversation around when that time is, and it's different for a lot of different organizations. But some of the big things are, auditability, that come to mind. And as companies look to scale and potentially, take in investments, or at the same time look to go public, or things of that nature, that the auditability and those controls are critical for your success as you scale. But really what it comes down to here is that this gives the onus on the team that already has a particular skill set. And once again, a lot of customers are investing in the Salesforce application already. So how do you leverage the skill set of your team already without having to go and get someone else with some specific skill set? The people that manage Salesforce today can 100% own the CRM Accelerator piece of Xactly and Cent, and make sure that it's wholly owned, which once again allows for you to be more agile and get things out the door a lot faster. So that's what our customers are coming back to us and saying, is that, and we'll hear from Andrew shortly on what that's been his experience so far. But it really gives the ability to fully own the entire process.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, getting up and running quickly. I think that, there's a lot of initiatives out there today, digital transformation initiatives and the like, across the board with a lot of our customers, and for that matter, future customers. And what it comes down to is that you're looking to be able to deploy things fast. And I like to use the omen, from the great John Wooden, who was the head basketball coach at UCLA for many, many years. And he says, hurry, but don't rush. When you rush, you make mistakes. And so what this ladders back to this conversation here today, is that you want to really hurry. You want to get things out the door, but you want to do it right. Because if you don't have time to do it right the first time, why are you going to have time to do it twice? And that's also something we might hear a little bit from Andrew as to experiences he's had, leveraging some other solutions. And really, if you can get it right the first time, that's the mecca. I mean, I've spoken to a CFO that when he brought Xactly on, his exact words to me were, I've never at my past companies been able to get comp right. And that's what I'm looking to do here. And that's why he brought in Xactly. And that to me really resonates. And I think that's what we see a lot with our customers, is making sure you get comp right the first time.
Excellent. Thank you, Taylor. Really appreciate it. Let me stop sharing that so we can turn it over to the star of the show. So, Andrew, I hope you can validate many of the points we made. But as I think about it, time to value, and I know you had experience with some other tools, the connection between RevOps and sales ops, the value to the end users of that full transparency, the alignment to corporate goals. So I'll turn it, you're on mute.
Always on mute, right, for a virtual call. So I just want to give a background. Co-Climate, we're an engineering management platform. I'll say very much Salesforce for engineers. Very similar. We want to make sure that our software is bringing the ROI as soon as possible to the engineering team, offering impactful data, offering the ability to make decisions based on the data of your engineering team, the ROI for your projects, and make sure you're making the right decision when you're actually revising what your next product offerings are, potentially new features. So I would say there is a lot of alignment internally as a company to focus on data, documentation, making sure you have the right processes. But unfortunately, on the revenue operations side, past 2-3 years, very much unguided, unmapped, a lot of disparate systems and a lot of unknowns and a minimal enablement. So one portion, of course, revenue operations is compensation, incentive planning, and very much for a growing sales team. What do they care about most? Of course, their incentives. We were, of course, a shop that was utilizing Excel to do our incentive planning and payouts. Prior to that, we've used a few other vendors too. Of course, have now transitioned to Xactly. Past year in the role and Co-Climate, using the other vendor, I would say utilization for the AEs was about 0%. They were never properly trained up, never really trusted the data that was offered from the other vendor, what the compensation should be, either estimated or the actual incentive for the end of quarter. And then, of course, as myself, as a supposed administrator, really never was in the platform. Yeah, again, same issue. Didn't really trust the connector between Salesforce and that platform, and was really wondering if there would be a better solution. Luckily, the controller at Co-Climate and myself had past experience with Xactly, had trust in the software, and immediately started spinning up the plan, a roadmap of how to bring in Xactly, and then finding out that, hey, there's now a solution that directly connects Salesforce flows into Xactly. Perfect. I'm a big proponent of flows and no code, so it was a great transition to hear that. And of course, having Xactly in the past, it was a longer implementation time, and hearing, hey, if it's built out through flows with this connector, we're going to be able to shorten that period. Also wonderful news. So got very excited. Overall, right now, we're still in the final stages of implementation. It's in our Salesforce platform. The plans are being built out. And right now, we're just making sure that everything is copacetic before we launch it in our Q1 incentive plans. So very excited right now with the overall setup. Setup time was about 1 quarter. So definitely not too much of a worry about, hey, you're not going to see ROI until 180 days or a year after purchasing, which is always great to hear. And overall, right now, I think the sales team is very much excited that they can go into Salesforce, open up a dashboard, and that's the only place they have to look for their incentive plan data and where they're kind of falling into for the commissions for the quarter and for the year, versus having to go to another platform or doing their own calculations in a spreadsheet. So very strong pluses there. Overall, I would say as an administrator, my biggest gain is having that transparent and trust and overall automations and processes. During the onboarding into our production instance, there was a bug in between Xactly and Salesforce, but it was related to a flow map, or mapping within the flow. Easy fix. I knew exactly what the problem was. I saw the error message when it was first generated. I was able to put together a solution. If it was its own connector, proprietary software, I would have to put in a ticket, wait 2 or 3 days to hopefully get a fix. And who knows, like if the fix is going to work, it might take a week to actually get that fix. So instead, within an hour, got the error message, looked into the error message that we all know that Salesforce administrators fixed the flow map, and easy peasy, it worked from there. So very much positive, much easier to debug. And yet again, same thought process, transparency throughout the overall incentive plan. As an AE, you're able to see your incentive plan within Salesforce. As a revenue ops consultant and also revenue ops assistant for them, just making sure that their overall incentive plan makes sense within Salesforce, that's matching up what the overall needs are based off of the yearly incentive plan. Then from there, we have our accounting team who can check back into Salesforce to make sure that the incentive plan aligns. in Salesforce. And of course, it's going to line in Xactly, same exact data points. So there's no worries there too.
So, in the CRM space, there's different points of CRMs like sales, service, marketing, commerce, and people talk about the conundrum of connecting, sales to marketing, for example, or sales to service. Here we're talking about sales to rev, rev ops to sales ops. But it sounds like you would agree and validate that this brings those two pieces together, that it's not seen as like calculations in the closet, if you will, and then hope and pray that it was done right. And then I understand what went behind the calculations, right?
Right, definitely. So, I mean, we're very transparent of how their incentive plan and comp structure is put out. Of course, with Xactly being built into Salesforce, an opportunity, it pretty much says like, hey, this is the opportunity value, this is what we're bookings, and this is what your commission is. So nice and easy. They can back into it with a external calculator if they want, but right now there is enough trust that, hey, the simple percentage here and there, break it down, you'll get the same exact number. So there's really not that worry. And also the instantaneous understanding of bookings to commission, nice and easy.
And would you say what I was saying before about, Salesforce working for you and creating stickiness, would you agree that this creates more stickiness for Salesforce?
Yeah, definitely. I think overall, it assists with people staying within the platform. I mean, in the past, they had to jump around 2 different pieces of software, if not 3, if you want to look at spreadsheet 2 to determine what your overall compensation will be at the end of the quarter. It definitely keeps it in one platform, trusting that one data point, instead of having to copy and paste a bunch of numbers, hopefully get to the right commission number.
And I'm guessing it's going to take some time and experience and data to work through. But I also, feel strongly that having the data all resident in Salesforce positions you. Another basketball coach, Bobby Knight, who said, "Be in position to be in position," right? So we're in position to get insights because the data is connected, where you can validate the alignment, right? Are we paying on the priorities that we set forth, and if are we selling against the priorities, and if not, can we tweak the plans quickly and transparently to adjust so that we continue on the right path, right? So that's what I envision with every customer getting more, and again, Salesforce would like to position Salesforce that way as the system of engagement, right? That gets you more data, that allows you to make better decisions.
Yeah, of course. But overall, like as a seller, you're going to gamify your incentive plan. So being able to see the overall impactfulness of your gamification is going to hopefully directionalize you to make sure your comp is as high as possible. And at the same time, with that transparency as a leader for sales incentive planning, understand like, hey, are you driving towards the right direction? Are they selling the right products, discounting properly, not overselling, underselling a product? So yes, very much so, positioning properly with this data.
Excellent. Taylor, is there anything else you'd like to add? I know here we're talking specifically about this solution and this capability, but I think once you get into this world of, that transparency, that quick time to value, there's other dimensions of the overall story, right? Whether it's forecasting, expense forecasting, things like that. I don't know if you wanted to comment at all on where the journey could take somebody like Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, with Incent being our flagship solution at Xactly, we do have 3 on ramps to the platform: planning, performance, and predictability. And then where we're unique in the space is that overlap, especially as you're talking to the performance and the predictability aspect with our forecasting solution, because you can take pipeline data that lives within Salesforce and with the bidirectional sync into our forecasting application, see the health of that pipeline, and then bounce that off of how someone is trending towards their attainment, et cetera, and understand what that expense exposure looks like for the finance team. But at the same time, provide that incentive as well to the AE or the rep to understand directly within their pipeline screen what it is that opportunity could pay them based on where they're at within their journey and their comp plan, accelerators, spiffs, et cetera. So once again, drive that behavior. And so I mentioned at the onset, the total economic impact report that we did with Forrester, and the biggest things that we noticed, and this is in order, is number 1 was the payment accuracy was driving the ROI behind the tool, and especially as it goes with Salesforce is how the analysis was done. And then after that comes that sales productivity piece, right? So how are the reps actually being more productive within their day-to-day, as Andrew talked about, not going to separate 2-3 other systems, but everything living within that single source of truth being Salesforce. And then the next one, of course, is the less inquiries and disputes, right? If you build that trust, then there's going to be less inquiries and disputes. They're going to spend less time even diving into the numbers because they know they can trust those numbers, therefore saving time as well on the RevOps side, so they can be more analytical and strategic with their time. Of course, plan configuration. In the last couple of years, more plan changes have been made than ever mid-year, and so being able to configure those plans with ease is of course a huge thing in being agile. And then, of course, the increased audit and compliance is just something that's always there and on the back of someone's mind. You don't want to worry about whether or not changes are being tracked, who made those changes, how they affect everything, and what that looks like over the course of not just that year, but even up to 7 years in the past. So those are the things that I think about that are driving not just the experiences and how people are managing their business, but also how do they get ROI on an investment in the application, not just Xactly and Cent, but then at the same time we talked about that stickiness and you're getting more out of Salesforce at the same time. That's really what our customers have grown to appreciate with this application.
Thank you. Taylor, one other comment that I know you talked about speed to value. Andrew, you talked about it. Taylor, you talked about it. I want to just touch and reiterate the term agility, right? Because there's time to value, but there's also time to adjustment, right? And I'd like to offer that this combined solution, especially when you're in that front end of Salesforce, Andrew, where you're so comfortable, the ability to be agile, because we've all seen just over the last couple of years, right? I don't know why I use this as my example. We can all relate to it. But when the pandemic hit, one area of agility is if I was in the, because we have large customers in the alcohol and beverage business, right? And so they were selling to grocery stores, restaurants, liquor stores, let's say, right? And restaurants were immediately closed, right? So that you have to be agile to start redirecting resources. Or some of those folks made hand sanitizer instead of alcohol, right? And you have to start paying on, like, we have a new product coming out to market. We got to get it out to the market very quickly. Or one of our competitors just went out of business. We got to start paying extra on a particular product or service that didn't matter, that a month ago was business as usual, right? So the ability to be agile in directing your teams, to make sure you're incenting them appropriately and aligning with the goals. Again, we're just getting up and going in, just so you don't have that, but I suspect you can appreciate the agile nature of the platform, so that if things like that, and we're all seeing some headwinds in the market today, we didn't see, those of us in the high tech field, we didn't see a few months ago. So, that may have its own implications.
No,
Andrew,
definitely overall on my side, of course, we're implementing in 2022. Our 2023 incentive plans have changed, not significantly, but still material. And to make those changes, maybe it was less than 30 minutes of work within Salesforce flows. So a lot easier than, of course, again, updating a Excel spreadsheet, sending out those Excel spreadsheets to the right people, updating another vendor, and of course, updating whatever maybe manual process you have in Salesforce or custom object as calculations too. So again, very simple, very quick, one single solution to make that change for our 2023 incentive plan versus, of course, across system changes potentially.
Yeah, I mean, another thing that our customers see there too is when those plan changes are made, the analytics associated with it, right? So seeing what the impact is, if you run it through, a modeling scenario to understand how that changes the total payout, if that were to be the plan from last year, things along those lines that can make more data-informed decisions to those plan changes, not just then, but also in the future. See any outliers that there might be people that are absolutely crushing their OTE, but are nowhere near quota attainment, right? And so what's that outlier? What's going on there? And how do you really be more prescriptive? I kind of think prehab versus rehab, right? See it ahead. That way you're not on your heels. And that way, that's really how that RevOps engine is moving at full speed.
Yeah, I mean, just right now, again, the headwinds, you see a big shift from top line growth to bottom line growth, right? And if what's most important is to be profitable, but you don't have the systems in place to pay on margin, that's a problem, right? And I was on a panel last week, and one of your colleagues, Taylor, was mentioning in his prior life, he wanted to provide a spiff to address a market demand. and finance said, we can't support that spiff because our systems don't support it, right? So now you're encumbered from doing what you know is the right thing to do to get your sales reps in line, but you can't pay them accordingly. So anyway, this was great. Andrew, really appreciate your experience, your insights. I know you've worked with other, products, you've worked with other consultancies, so we've certainly valued the great partnership that we've developed with you and your team, and we hope that this is, part of a much longer partnership journey as we continue to take advantage of some of these innovations that we're seeing from Xactly. And Taylor, thank you for being such a great partner. I see it as a three-way stool that's just been very successful for us. And as Customer Times, we're proud to be your partner. Andrew, we're proud to have you as a customer. So I thank you both.
Likewise, appreciate it. I mean, it definitely is a triangle, right? If we didn't have partners and customers, well, I'd be I don't know what I would do. So appreciate you both.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Excellent.
CRM Accelerator, very easy build out process. Yet again, since it is integrated with Salesforce flows as a protector of Salesforce and be able, of course, understand how flows work and utilize flows and automate as much as possible for flows. Very easy onboard, and then also be able to make sure that on the finance side, there's understanding of, hey, this is the actions that are happening in Salesforce. This is what's going to be input in Xactly. Was a nice and easy conversation. So enabling my finance team to understand every single step that's occurring from Salesforce to Xactly has been quite easy. Same exact process with the buy-in for our AEs, since it is living in Salesforce and they are very familiar with Salesforce. Dashboarding has been nice and simple for them to understand, hey, this is how your commissions are going to be broken out within Salesforce, nice and simple. And those overall discussions definitely have not been too much of an issue, especially comparatively to the vendor we are currently offboarding. So right now, transition has been nice and simple, nice and easy, and very low worries.
And Andrew, I think you meant again, I don't want to name names, right? But you had another solution that, my understanding, you spent a lot longer time trying to get working, didn't fully complete the job, whereas in a much shorter time we were able to. And you sort of alluded to something I didn't put a lot of energy around, which is transparency, right? That's another, what you've said, the ability, you're not calculating in a, outside the system where you see the numbers and they're not quite sure how we got there. This transparency of it's in Salesforce, that's where it starts, that's where it ends. There might be a calculation engine bringing me, doing the work, but it's all right here. And it sounds like that's a big benefit to your team and certainly to you as an administrator, but to the team from a visibility standpoint.
Yeah, that's correct. It's all about transparency, especially for your sales team. They need trust in the revenue operations. They need to have trust in the finance at the end of the month, end of the quarter, their commission check is accurate, and be able to back into that number is very much important to them. And once again, hey, when they can gamify and understand, hey, if they take these actions on discounting and bundling, their commission check will look like this versus not. And of course, they don't have to rely on an Excel spreadsheet to do that, because as you all know, if you screw up a function in an Excel spreadsheet, it kind of goes down and down and worsens. So best that they have a consolidated version of where they can play around with their commissions and their bookings, and of course, see that outcome later in the quarter.
And they say you shouldn't, that in a court of law, you shouldn't ask a question you don't know the answer to. I don't know the answer. I'm going to ask you it anyway, which is, when we talk about sales ops and rev ops, would you say that this is weighted more toward, with this solution, it's less of a black box inside of finance and more of an open box, to sales? Like with your involvement as a sales admin, that you're far more involved than just, throwing all the numbers aside and let someone in finance do all the work.
No, 100%. I mean, since now I've been very much ingrained throughout the process, understanding the actions that are connecting Salesforce with Xactly through CRM Accelerator. Definitely now very much trusting, understanding what I'm sending over to finance is properly utilized. I know what is being regurgitated back to me. I'll say with like the other vendor that's not Xactly, never had a strong grasp of what was happening with the different formulas or how they were doing the calculations. So there was constant true up afterwards and reconfirmation. But I would say since I kind of know the formulas, understand how the formulas work and what the outputs are through Xactly relatively easily, very much trusting of those numbers.